Every January, the same thing happens. People look at December numbers, they jump to conclusions, and they start asking whether the market is heating up, falling apart, or about to do something crazy and dramatic. And in a market like Fernie, that instinct is almost always wrong. December is one of the most misleading months in real estate, not because the data is incorrect, but because the conditions under which the data is created are very different from the rest of the year. So in this video, we're not going to react emotionally to a month of numbers, we're not going to make any crazy predictions, and we're not going to try and time the spring market. Instead, we're going to use the December 2025 data as a diagnostic tool to understand where pressure exists, where it doesn't, and what that tells us as we move into 2026. December is a low participation month. Sellers delay listings, buyers delay decisions, transactions that do happen are often very specific. They have to do with job changes, relocations, or buyers who are already committed to buying earlier in the fall. That means December numbers are compressed. A few sales can move prices. A few missing transactions can make activity look weaker than it really is. But here's the key point. Even though December is noisy, it still reveals behavior. It shows us who's willing to transact when there is no urgency, no competition, and no seasonal momentum. That makes December one of the best months to understand true market discipline. Before narrowing in on Fernie, we need to understand what's going on in the region that's closer to us that we're part of, and that's the Kootenays. Across the Kootenay region in December of 2025, total residential sales increased by roughly 25% year over year. Inventory declined modestly, and benchmark prices across most categories remained stable to slightly positive. So that tells us something important. This is not a distressed regional market. There is no evidence of forced selling, widespread price compression, or even inventory overload. However, pay attention, Fernie does not behave like an average Kootenay market. Fernie is its own bubble. Fernie is its own beast. Fernie has higher price points, lower transaction volume, more discretionary buyers, and stronger seasonality, which means Fernie must be analyzed on its own terms. In larger markets, trends show up in volume first. In Fernie, trends show up in which listings sell and which ones don't. A handful of transactions can tell you more than hundreds elsewhere. That's why Fernie data needs interpretation, not reaction, and December of 2025 gives us several clear signals. Now let's start with single-family homes. In December of 2025, Fernie recorded 5 single-family home sales. 5. That may sound small, but in Fernie, 5 sales in December is meaningful. The benchmark price came in just over $1 million, representing an approximate 9% increase year over year. Now, this is where people get tripped up. This does not mean that prices are accelerating across the board. What it means is that certain homes are still commanding strong prices, even in a cautious end-of-year environment. These typically are well-located properties, homes in good condition, listings that align with buyer expectations. This is not momentum, this is selectivity. Homes that don't meet these criteria are simply not selling quietly. They're simply not selling at all. In a small market, benchmark prices are sensitive. A few higher-end sales can lift the benchmark and skew the numbers. A lack of mid-range sales can also do the same. That's why price movement must always be paired with transaction context. December's data tells us that buyers are still present, but only for homes that justify their price without requiring optimism. That's an important shift from earlier cycles. Now let's talk about townhomes. In December of 2025, Fernie recorded 0, nada, zilch, townhouse sales. That number gets attention, but context matters. Let's just hold on for a second here. We don't have a lot of townhouses for sale in this town at all. In fact, I don't even know if there's any that are listed that are actually completed and you can transact on. There's some pre-sales that we can buy, but we're not going to close on those for another 2 or 3 months. Townhome buyers in Fernie are often very discretionary. They're not under any pressure at all, and they can wait. 0 sales in December does not mean that the demand has vanished. The world's coming to an end. It means that the buyers chose patience over urgency. That tells us something important heading into 2026. This is a market where buyers feel no need to rush. Now, condos and apartments are often the most sensitive segment in Fernie. In December of 2025, Fernie recorded 3 condo or apartment sales, with the benchmark pricing in the mid $500,000 range, essentially flat year over year. That tells us several things. First of all, entry-level demand still exists. Second, investors are cautious. And third, pricing power is limited unless a property really stands out. This is not speculative demand. This is end user demand. The people buying these are living in them. They're not buying them to rent them out, throw them up on Airbnb or short-term rent or even long-term rent these anymore. This is the person that's going to live in Fernie. One of the most important trends heading into 2026 is not price. It's time. In winter, listings don't fail loudly, they fail quietly. They expire, they disappear, they get pulled. The owners, they decide to wait for the spring. People don't want to move in the winter, but buyers do notice. A listing that sits through the winter without selling often re-enters the market in the spring with history, even if the seller doesn't realize it. That makes the initial pricing and positioning critical for that home. In this market, execution matters way more than optimism. So what does all of this tell us as we enter into 2026? All right, you guys sit down, ready for this? Fernie is not overheating. Fernie is not collapsing. Fernie is Fernie. Fernie is very disciplined right now. Buyers are patient. Sellers must be precise. And outcomes depend on quality, pricing, and expectations. That is the defining theme right now. Now, December does not tell us where prices will be in June. It does not tell us how busy spring will be. And it does not tell us whether rates, policy, or broader economic forces will change. What it does tell us is how the market behaves without pressure. And that information is super valuable. Markets don't usually turn in December. They just simply reveal themselves. And what Fernie revealed in December of 2025 is a market that rewards realism and punishes assumptions. That's not a bad market, that's a mature one. In the next video, I'm going to answer a question that matters far more than the headlines. Who actually has the leverage in Fernie right now? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? You gotta stay tuned. And that's where we'll go next. Ha ha.